council itself want to buy out the intellectual property rights for HBAR. And the reason why this is really important, they plan on making this an open source technology. It becomes easier for larger organizations or corporations to come in, or even new organizations and startups to build Web3 decentralized apps. That's huge. That's going to happen. It's going to be really exciting for HBAR. Yo, greetings cryptocurrency enthusiasts and traders and investors. Today, I'm going to be going through a very special video about Hedera Hashgraph. By the way, follow me on Traderondablock on Twitter and Facebook, and subscribe and like to this video, please. You'd just be helping me out, and I'd really appreciate that. Anyways, I'm here to talk about Hedera Hashgraph. Now, what is Hedera Hashgraph? Hedera Hashgraph is an alternate blockchain technology, and I want you guys to understand that Hedera Hashgraph differs greatly from how the original traditional blockchain works and how Bitcoin actually runs as well. HBAR is the equivalent of Bitcoin in separate blockchain technologies. The way that the blockchain was developed, it was actually developed as a digital timestamp. The purpose of this digital timestamp was to take digital documents and be able to tell when they were signed and when they were filled. So a bunch of trusting mechanisms within the digital world is what the blockchain is. It was developed in 1991 by a bunch of computer scientists, and it really wasn't used that much. And then in 2009, Satoshi came around, and what did he find? Found Bitcoin. These two boxes here represent blocks. Now, these blocks have three pieces of key information. Number one, there's a data box at the top. There's also a hash area and a current hash area. Hashes are meant to be like fingerprints. And the reason why this is important, especially in the digital age, is there's no way, no mechanism to trust what someone does. So if I were to tell you something in the digital world, you necessarily won't believe that that is true because there's no history. You don't know what exactly happened in certain communication parameters. So you can't really trust everything. Blockchain is kind of meant to solve that. In the traditional sense of blockchain, you have a current hash and you have a previous hash in every single block. And in every single block, which represents this block right here, there's data. For example, for Bitcoin, which is built on top of the blockchain, traditional blockchain. From Traderondablock, I would want to send my Traderondablock fans an amount, which of course is priceless. And on the receiving end, you would be, or the Traderondablock fans would be the recipient, and the amount that you received is priceless. Now what happens here, and this is the trusting mechanism that's used within the blockchain framework, is that for the first originating block, it is called Genesis hash. For every transaction that occurs, a new hash is created. So the way the trusting mechanism works within the blockchain environment is that when a current hash is created, you can't take any of these hashes from in between and change them, because any one single change to the data here would change the hash. Hash is an alphanumeric code that looks like this. So if you were to change, let's say the letter or the word the, or let's say you add a space to THE space, this whole thing changes. That's a hash. Now, what happens is if you change anything in between, so let's say that I'm sending you some currency, you can't change that currency because that hash would change, and then this hash would have to change, but it didn't. You can't change this block or this block. So that's why the blockchain is a trusted technology, because once there's a consensus, then that block is completed, and that's when a transaction is completed. Hedera Hashgraph is more of a gossiping technology. There's no chain that goes from one block to the next. Picture a few people talking. So let's say Traderondablock, he talks to his fans, and I talk to my kid. Your mom's there too, by the way. So, I'm not talking to your mom, but, Drake's talking to your mom, and Michael Bublé, everybody's talking to your mom. So everybody's talking to each other, but how do you prove who said what, when, in what order? So how do you organize and disseminate this type of information? Before we go further, guys, I have a Twitter account. I'm starting to do tweets a lot. I'd love and appreciate if you gave me a follow as Traderondablock. Thank you very much. This is where the hash graph comes in. So this is the hash graph technology. What happens is every one of your conversations are tracked on this graph. So if Traderondablock talks to his fans, to Drake, to Zayn, and then in what order, each one of these circles that you see here, so green represents the fans, your communication path is mapped. So you know what the timestamp was, when you said it, what you said it to, your signature, and who said it. But this happens in a random order. This random gossiping that occurs in the network is timestamped and is organized. So when someone does a transaction, there's a transaction order, what order the events occurred. And now what we're receiving and sending is data, okay? So it's basically you're voting in a digital environment for consensus. The agreement occurs here when everybody has a timestamp and everybody's agreed based on the amount of HBAR they have, like a governing council, but based on amount of, let's say, shares you have in an organization, amount of active HBAR that you have mined or you have created and you have purchased in your active node. Hey guys, if you haven't yet, I'd love if you go on my Twitter, Traderondablock, and follow me. It's right on the screen. Also, like and subscribe to my YouTube channel. If you do that, that'll help me a lot. One of the biggest downsides I know about Hashgraph was the fact that there was a governing council. Basically, the governing council, meaning Leemon Baird, who's the founder of HBAR and Hedera Hashgraph, he basically owned the patented technology and the code, and no one really would be able to build upon that Hashgraph, meaning blockchain. Now, one of the major downsides for HBAR originally was the fact that they were actually not open source. They own the intellectual property, but the Hedera Governing Council, comprised of some of the largest organizations in the world, such as Google, IBM, council itself want to buy out the intellectual property rights for HBAR. And the reason why this is really important is because they plan on making this an open source technology. That's huge. Now you can actually build open source decentralized Web3 apps on this. Blockchain was an open source technology. Anybody can do and make any type of projects that they want, create decentralized apps on this blockchain. With HBAR in the mix now, it becomes easier for larger organizations or corporations to come in, or even new organizations and startups to build Web3 decentralized apps. That's gonna happen. It's gonna be really exciting for HBAR. The latest news is that the Hedera Hashgraph committee has formed a partnership with the UK government to build air traffic control infrastructure. Now, this is a huge deal. You're probably wondering, like how I used to, how does a technology like HBAR help government-owned air traffic control infrastructure, which is a big deal. Probably going to be worth $1 billion or more when they actually adopt this technology. Now, Hedera is not an open source technology yet, but they plan on making it once this intellectual property is transferred to the governing council. Once that happens, you're going to have people that will adopt the technology because now they're being able to use this technology to build apps on it. So imagine how many things were built on the blockchain. Now you're actually being able to leverage HBAR, Hedera Hashgraph technology to build apps on HBAR. Now this is HBAR doing one project. Imagine now they build an open source technology. Now other organizations can come in, or other projects can come in and build on that infrastructure. That's going to be big. That's going to be huge. Let's go through some of the technical analysis, starting with this market cap. Market cap is sitting at $4 billion. For a technology like this that's been around for a few years now, it seems really low. I think that there's a long play here. And I think that governing council at HBAR, working with a slew of different investors and entrepreneurs, probably figure that they have to run this application for a few years as a closed source code. And then over that time, also test for abilities to open up this source code. If they test it for that amount of time, they'll be able to securely see whether they're able to continue securing their intellectual property, and they're able to open the code up so that it's not subject to hackers or any other network forks. So they're probably waiting for those things. Now, that time is probably coming. So let's look at some of the technical analysis of this. So let's start actually with the weekly and see what's going on. So you see, number one, off the bat, this chart goes back, let's say 2019. All right. Now, first of all, in 2021 March, just like a lot of other cryptos, there was a move up and it moved down to retrace that 70%, and followed by another move up 300% at its highest. All right. And then it was followed by a move down to 60%. Now, where do we think a Hashgraph is going to go? Nobody knows. Let's look at some technical elements. Number one, there's a strong support line here. Let's get rid of this. Let's get rid of this. And let's draw this strong support line that has emerged. Not emerged, but it's been around. Actually, we'll draw a box here. Strong support box in this area. The reason why I'm putting it in this area is because there's a lot of volume that's happening here. became resistance right here. Now, what I see off the bat is that there was a break of all-time highs here. It tested it, but it didn't retest that zone here, other than this small little candle. So what that tells me is there's potential that this could just wick down here in this area between 8 cents and 15 cents before moving on up. Now, I implore you to also check out Bitcoin chart and how it started up. Now, let's quickly pull up Bitcoin here. Bitcoin in its first year, it shot up. I can't even measure the move, right? It was basically its first year in $40. All right, so there are different stories. But the thing is, the blockchain was open source since its inception. Bitcoin came in and it built off of the blockchain. So that's why it had a huge utility, because it was the first to have done that. Hedera is not the first to build a consensus mechanism in a digital environment. So now the adoption of HBAR and Hedera Hashgraph methodology is just occurring. Obviously, you know that I'm very excited about things like this. Now, for me, I don't know whether it's going to go up or down. But what I do know, the opportunity cost is too great. So now that we know that it's support zone, we have to speculate whether this thing can go down further. So let's see what's happening in more of a daily time. We see a couple of things here. Number one, we see a very similar move between these two areas here. So we see a trend line that's formed and is now acting as resistance that has occurred in this particular spot, and a similar trend line here. So that means that it was trending in a channel. So now it still looks like we're in some sort of channel, but it looks like now we might be creating some sort of a wedge meaning some sort of a triangular line here. So let's edit this line here and see what type of shape that it is forming and what we can say is happening to the price action here. All right, so as you can see, it's forming some sort of channel again, but it's a wedge type of channel. That last time it happened was here, and it moved up, looks like 130%. So potentially there's a conversion and a move that's going to happen right in, wrong thing here, right in here. And I think potentially a bounce off of here, a retest of this line. Obviously there's probably a little bit of zigzags over there. But then I think, you know, it's gonna probably range a little bit before, you know, who knows when. I can't tell you the timing. You can always pull out fib extension, time range zones, and pull out your Elliott waves and do all that, but you'd just be speculating at the end of the day. But overall market structure on the daily looks like, you know, it's gonna definitely go down for the, I think, effective near future. But anything at this zone, I think, is a great bargain, because look how much we've gone down in price. As I was mentioning earlier, 67%. That's never happened in Hedera's history. And if anything is the predictor of future market behavior, it's this, right? So the reason why HBAR is going to be a huge deal is because of the fact that the regular blockchain technology, Bitcoin, it takes like 10 minutes to confirm a block, and you can only post like 5 to 10 transactions every single second. Whereas Hashgraph, believe it or not, you can post hundreds of thousands of transactions at a fraction of the cost. If that's not a reason to think that enterprise level corporations with a large volume of transactions, if you think that they're not going to adopt this technology, this is the type of technologies that enterprises are looking for. Number one, a governing council, whether you think it's right or wrong. Whether you think the technology is meant to be decentralized or not, this is what large corporations like Google and IBM and Tata, they are more comfortable with the data and the processing that's occurring in a cryptographic manner, which makes it secure for users. Then you know that there's going to be enterprise level adoption with HBAR. And that's why I'm very bullish on HBAR. So what is it going to happen with HBAR? I think it's going to play out what the macroeconomic events that are happening right now. I think it's going to play that out. And the money, enterprise level funding and investments by larger whales and entities will adopt this technology. And when that happens, there's going to be a lot of money that flows in, and then the bulls are going to kick in, and that's it. The rest is going to be history. This section that you see here in front of you, it's going to be a blip. When I say blip, I mean this is the blip I'm talking about. Okay, watch this blip. Blip. See this blip right here? This is a blip. This is where we are going to be one day. Okay, this is going to be current one day. All right, we are here. All right, this is going to be this one day. All right. Okay, all I'm saying is if you are looking for a technology to research more on, do your own research, guys. DYOR. All right, I do my research, and if I believe in a project, I will undertake further actions and getting my skin in the game. What is HBAR going to do for the future? My guess is going to be it's going to start fueling NFTs. It's going to start fueling the metaverse. And I think one day, number one, if this were to 10x, that's only $50 billion, guys. It's sitting at a $4 billion valuation. If this were to 10x, that's only a $40 billion valuation. Now, if I were to look at this graph and look at a 40, and that's very doable. Now, what is that $40 billion valuation? Okay, that you're talking about here in this range, you're going to talk about the top 5. Are you saying that this can't be bigger than BNB? Absolutely it can. It is talking about a brand new technology. The reason why people will hate on Hedera and reaching Bitcoin level one day is because of the fact that they have 50 billion in circulating supply versus you have 21 million in Bitcoin. Picture them becoming the next crypto.com, guys. $2. That's it. Get us at $1. You know? Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed that video about HBAR, and I hope you learned something new. And if you did, I really appreciate a like and a subscribe, share if you're into that kind of stuff. And hey, you guys see Traderondablock on the screen, although my screen might be blocking it. It is right over here. If you guys give me a follow, a thumbs up on this video, subscribe, I'd really appreciate that. I hope you enjoyed, and thank you very much for your time. Have yourself a great day.